Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let's break down the big news. President Trump has just signed a sweeping new travel ban, and it's already making waves around the world. Whether you're a frequent traveler, have family abroad, or just want to stay informed, this is something you'll want to pay attention to. The announcement came after weeks of speculation and heated debate, and now the details are finally out. As of Monday, June 9, 2025, travelers from 12 countries are completely banned from entering the US, and folks from 7 others face partial restrictions. This means thousands of people who had plans to visit, study, or reunite with loved ones are suddenly left in limbo. Airports across the globe are already seeing confusion and frustration as travelers scramble to understand the new rules. According to the White House, the main reason for this sweeping action is national security. Officials cite ongoing concerns over terrorism, inadequate vetting procedures, and alarmingly high visa overstay rates. The administration argues that these measures are necessary to protect American citizens and prevent potential threats from slipping through the cracks. So, let's dive into exactly who's affected and why. The list of countries is long, and the reasons for their inclusion are complex, involving everything from government instability to lack of cooperation with U.S. authorities. First, the full ban covers Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Citizens from these countries are now barred from entering the U.S. under almost all circumstances. That means, if you're a foreign national from any of these countries, you can't enter the U.S. unless you're a green card holder, a dual national traveling on a different passport, or you already have a valid visa issued before June 9th, so if you're a student who just got your visa last month, you're probably safe for now. But if you were planning to apply, your options just got a lot more limited. There are some special exemptions for diplomats, certain religious minorities, and Afghan interpreters who worked with U.S. forces. These groups are recognized as having unique circumstances, and the administration says it will review their cases individually. Still, the process is expected to be slow and complicated, with many left waiting for answers. Why these countries? Let's unpack the reasoning. The administration says it's all about data, overstay rates, security cooperation, and the ability to verify identities. But critics argue that the criteria are inconsistent and sometimes politically motivated. Afghanistan is under Taliban control, a group the US labels as global terrorists. The country just doesn't have reliable authorities to issue documents or vet travelers. Plus, nearly 10% of Afghan visitors on business or tourist visas overstayed last year, and among students and exchange visitors, that number jumps to nearly 30%. The US government says this makes it nearly impossible to track who's coming and going, raising serious security concerns. Burma's visa overstay rates are even higher, over 27% for tourists and business travelers, and more than 42% for students. The US also says Burma doesn't take back its citizens when asked, making deportations nearly impossible. This lack of cooperation has been a sticking point in diplomatic relations for years. Chad's numbers are huge. Nearly half of visitors on tourist visas in 2023 overstayed, and more than half of students did the same. That's an increase from the year before, a trend the White House calls unacceptable. Officials say these high rates show a pattern of disregard for U.S. immigration laws. The Republic of the Congo also saw about 30% of visitors and 35% of students overstaying their visas. The government there has struggled to implement effective border controls, and the U.S. says this poses a risk to national security. Equatorial Guinea? Over 70% of students and exchange visitors didn't leave when they were supposed to. That's one of the highest rates in the world, and it's a major red flag for U.S. officials who worry about people disappearing into the country without proper documentation. Eritrea's government doesn't share criminal records with the U.S. and refuses to take back its own nationals for deportation. Their overstay rates are high too, over 20% for tourists and more than half for students. The lack of cooperation makes it nearly impossible for U.S. authorities to enforce immigration laws or vet travelers properly. Haiti's issues are twofold: high overstay rates and a lack of reliable law enforcement sharing. More than 30% of Haitian tourists overstayed last year, and the U.S. says the country's instability makes it a security risk. Ongoing political turmoil and frequent natural disasters have only made the situation more complicated. Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism, according to the U.S., and regularly refuses to cooperate on security or take back deportees. The administration says this makes it impossible to ensure that travelers from Iran don't pose a threat. Libya and Somalia both lack functioning governments able to issue secure documents, and both have persistent terrorist threats. Somalia, in particular, is called a terrorist safe haven by US officials. The chaos in these countries makes it extremely difficult to verify identities or track movements. Sudan and Yemen round out the list with high overstay rates and governments that can't control their own territory or guarantee security. Yemen is also a site of active US military operations, adding another layer of complexity and risk for American officials. Now, there's also a partial ban for 7 countries: Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. These countries aren't completely cut off, but their citizens face new hurdles if they want to visit the US. People from these countries face restrictions on certain types of visas, like business, tourist, student, and exchange visitor visas, mostly because of high overstay rates or lack of cooperation with US authorities. For example, students from these countries may find it much harder to get approval, and business travelers could see their applications delayed or denied. This policy is controversial, with critics saying it hits vulnerable populations and disrupts students and families. Human rights groups argue that it unfairly targets people fleeing violence or seeking better opportunities, and universities worry about losing talented students from around the world. But the White House insists it's necessary to keep Americans safe. Officials say the travel ban is a temporary measure that will be reviewed regularly, and that the ultimate goal is to encourage better cooperation from foreign governments. If you want more updates and explainers like this, remember to subscribe. We'll keep breaking down the latest headlines and what they mean for you and your community. That's your in-depth breakdown of Trump's 2025 travel ban, what it means, who it affects, and why it's happening now. The situation is still developing, so stay informed, keep asking questions, and I'll see you in the next one.